it on. Bring it on. Happy 314 Day, y'all. We have this wonderful panel that we are going to talk, and somewhere someone's going to tell me when I need to stop talking, because you're going to have to tell me to stop talking, because there's a lot to say. So we'll start on the end. How many of you watch the History Minute on? I watch it all the time. Jody Sowell is with the Missouri Historical Society. He is the president and CEO. These are all CEOs, by the way. They are all presidents of their organization. Vanessa Cooksey with the Regional Arts Commission. Arrey Obenson with the International Institute. And I had to ask him, what does your name mean? Because it's such a beautiful name, and it means the one. He is the one. So let's start off with branding, because there's so much to be said about who are we as a region? What is our brand? Do we need to get behind a singular theme in order to move forward, do you think?
It's absolutely necessary for us to be defined by something that is more than just how we look like. And I think it's a philosophical concept that creates energy in any movement or community. And so St. Louis in itself needs to be branded around something that we share, like common values that we have. And as I look around the room today, this is a clear example of the kind of branding that you want. That if you look around this room, it's very colorful in here. And what does that mean? And how do we translate that to everybody that's not in this room today, right, that it becomes infectious and really can be able to tell a story of what tomorrow is going to look like for this community.
Vanessa?
I agree. I think that there are things about St. Louis that people know both here and abroad. And it's just a matter of us leaning into that even more. Sometimes we call ourselves the show me state. I've started to say we're the show you states. We'll show you a good time. We'll show you how to get together. We'll show you all of the amazing arts and culture that we have here. More people come to St. Louis for arts and culture than all sports combined. So we're a both and community. We're a welcoming community, and it's just our need to remind ourselves of that, because people who come here to visit, they know and experience it.
And I think more than, sometimes when people hear brand, they think, well, what is the slogan? What is the logo? And it's more about what you have said, which is, what is the story we're telling? What is the story we're telling about St. Louis? And it is a multifaceted story. But we know, I mean, the recent Business Journal survey came out that said people who don't live in St. Louis know 3 things about us, right? They know the Arch, they know the baseball, and they know some headlines we wish they didn't know about. But that is true. That is what people know. And so we've got to do a better job of telling our story, whether you call that branding or not. It's about telling the St. Louis story.
I love this thing called place attachment that you focus a great deal on, Jody, and that is this attachment that people have to a place. Why is that important?
Yeah, so place attachment is the emotional bond that someone feels with a place. And it couldn't be more important to the future of St. Louis or any community. So we think a lot about issues of crime and population and jobs, but it turns out place attachment is the golden key. The Knight Foundation did a report called the Soul of the Community Report and found the cities with the highest place attachment also have the highest local GDP. They have fewer people leave them. They even survive natural disasters at higher rates. And people who live in those communities say that they feel less lonely. So this is incredibly important. It can feel squishy. It feels like, oh, but what is the metric? And there are metrics. And by the way, the 3 things that drive place attachment the most: one is a place that has social offerings, that has a lot to do, and arts and culture comes in there. Number 2 is that aesthetics, that it's beautiful in some way. And you saw in the video clips of Forest Park and Tower Grove Park. We have a beautiful city. And number 3 is welcoming to all. We have to show that this is a place welcoming to everyone.
How many of you feel an emotional attachment to St. Louis? Be honest. Be honest. And perhaps I should ask how many of you don't feel it, if you're willing to be honest here tonight. No shame. There's no shame. This is the no judgment zone. You do not feel attached. Okay, so the fact that you all feel attached means you should be spreading that. Vanessa, I was just in Atlanta. You worked in Atlanta. Traffic all day. It takes you, what did you tell me, Tatum? 45 minutes is just a trip to Target, right? But people in Atlanta has blown past us. In 1970, St. Louis was larger than Atlanta. Business Journal article online today. What can we learn from the identity that Atlanta has?
I try not to compare. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes,
and
it is.
In the same way that we are unique, so is Atlanta. But one of the things that I did appreciate when I was there is the commitment that they made around a city too busy to hate. And they opened up their doors, they welcomed. The other thing that was special about Atlanta is their music scene. And I would say that ours rivals there all day long. It's just how much we talk about it. Transportation is a little different. So there are things that we can look, not just at Atlanta, but across the country and take inspiration from and make sure that we are putting our 314 spin on it and defining who we want to be for ourselves and letting people know that.
The one, would you speak to us right now? We know that democracy and safety matter when immigrants and refugees relocate here to St. Louis. Where does civic pride rank for the refugees and the immigrants you work with? And secondly, are there lessons to be learned from immigrants and refugees about community pride?
Well, I'm glad you started this conversation with democracy. I think many people really have to walk the shoes of immigrants and refugees. For some of us that are coming originally from countries that have a dictatorship, we know what it means. We spend all our lives dreaming to be in a free country. So for immigrants and refugees who come here talking about civic pride, I had the opportunity to talk to a few immigrants that were taking their oath of office to become American citizens. And what I said to them was that if America didn't exist, where would you be sitting today? And you're sitting here today because America created an opportunity, upheld these ideals that allows for people who seek refuge around the world to find a place to come to. And that as they were swearing, taking their oath to become American citizens, they have to accept America for its imperfections and now become responsible for making America perfect. Because that's what we aspire for. And civic pride in itself is being able to feel like you belong to this community. And one of the things that we're trying to do at the International Institute is really to position St. Louis as a welcoming community to the rest of the world. So that we are defined by that, so that affects the way people think as they come to this community. We want people who live here to be seen, to feel like this is home for them, because it is home for them once they get here. And that, from the immigrant experience, that's what I realized, that they worry every day about protecting this democracy that we have, because it allows for generations to enjoy the freedom that they didn't have where they came from.
I don't know about everybody else, but I heard the word responsibility. That word really knocked me off this chair here. That they feel a responsibility. The question is, do we feel a responsibility, and how does it show up in what we do? Vanessa, he's talking about being welcoming to immigrants and refugees. Talk about how welcoming we are to artists.
We are very welcoming to artists. We can always do more, but one of the things that I love so much about the work we do at the Regional Arts Commission, not only do we fund our arts organizations, but we also fund artists. So we get to write checks to humans so that whether they're in the performing arts or visual arts, they have resources to create murals, whatever the case may be, that attract people and make St. Louis a fun place to be, a welcoming place, helps to tell our stories. And so that's something that I'm really proud of. And we also are doing a much better job of public-private partnerships. in making sure that artists have what they need from a professional development perspective, business, because artists are entrepreneurs. They're running their business and they need the skills and the support. Same thing with our arts organizations. And so we want to make sure when people come here to visit, and or whether you live here and you're going across town for a festival or a concert, that the quality of art that you're experiencing is second to none, and we are beating that.
And I know the work is that someone who wants to be an artist doesn't have to be a starving artist, that we can assist them in this becoming a living, breathing work that they do, right?
That is exactly right. This year alone, with the ARPA for the Arts grants that we've given, RAC will invest more than $4 million in artists and arts organizations in our community, and that's something that we're very focused on. We don't want our artists to be starving. We want our artists to thrive here.
We also don't want our artists living in their mama's basement as the mother of a 24-year-old who is in his own apartment, but I've sent him every Regional Arts Commission application. Boy, you better apply so you can stop asking me for grocery money. I'm just kidding. He's all right. He's doing all right. Jody, you actually came here to get your master's at St. Louis University. The intention was not to stay, but you decided to stay. Am I correct? I mean, you're here now, so clearly.
You demoted me. I was getting my doctorate.
Oh, was it? Listen,
Carol.
I'm sending you that page from the internet.
Okay.
From the interweb.
So yeah, I had been teaching.
He is Dr. Jody. I did not introduce him correctly.
I had been teaching before and assumed I was going to get my doctorate at SLU and go back out and teach. And instead, I absolutely fell in love with St. Louis, and we said we knew this is where we wanted to raise our girls, largely because of the arts, because I was making graduate school wages, and I could take those two girls to the art museum with a sketchbook every single week. If I was living in a city where I had to pay $25, $35 a ticket, we would have gone once, twice a year. That would have been it. And that goes to telling the St. Louis story, though. I was meeting with business that'll go unmentioned, a group of recruiters for that business. The people are trying to bring people to St. Louis. And I was telling them about how the arts is what brought me. And they said, oh, I never thought about telling people about the arts. I just tell them we have good sports and it's easy to get around. And I said, you have more free museums of anyone outside of Washington, D.C., and you didn't think to use that as a selling point for the community? We've got to tell all the positive parts of our place.
Carol, can I say one quick thing about
and
that?
applause for that.
Yes, please
yes. Tell the story.
We do benefit from a lot of free art here. We also cannot take for granted that it costs to produce art, so please don't ask artists to do work for free.
So I have to tell a quick story because one of my podcasts was with Kababi. Everybody, if you don't know who Kababi is, please, first of all, go listen to the podcast. He said, who shall remain nameless, an organization, a large organization, asked him to produce 50 pieces for $50. And I said, would you give me a release so that I can go and read them the riot act and let them know, don't you ever ask an artist for 50 individual pieces for $50. And this was recent. So come on, y'all. Pay the people. Pay the people. Pay the people. We're running out of time, as I knew we would. But Arrey, so many immigrants and refugees come and they work to keep their culture intact, their food, their language, all while trying to assimilate, of course. They are so very proud of who they are. And I'm curious if St. Louisans, if we can be a proud community, but not be a welcoming community.
I think pride and welcoming have to go hand in hand because, we were talking about free stuff, right? And the Festival of Nations is the largest multicultural festival in the United States, and it's free to this community. And the reason we have the Festival of Nations, which goes back to as far as 1920, the first Festival of Nations done in St. Louis, and the reason it was done was to ensure that people who had come from all over the world at the time, particularly from Eastern Europe could preserve their cultures, could find pride in their cultures whilst this community was welcoming them. So it was creating an opportunity for them not to forget who they are, to realize that the community embraces them, and that way we build a community together. That's the tradition which we continue today. And so pride in one's culture goes hand in hand with that culture being welcomed in the community that it exists.
I like it. Dr. Jody, because I'm not going to make the mistake again. I know you brought a couple of facts with you. At least I hope you did. Facts about St. Louis, because you're a historian and a journalist as well, so which makes you such a great storyteller. Did you bring some interesting facts about St. Louis that we probably did not? Am I putting you on the spot?
You are putting me on the spot.
Well, that's my job.
We have a presentation called I Am St. Louis and I Don't Believe We've Met. And the idea is you think you know St. Louis, but there's so much more to it. I am the place that argued it should be the United States capital. There was a real movement to move the capital of the United States to St. Louis. In 1869, 90 representatives from 17 different states and territories met in downtown St. Louis to decide if we should be the capital of the United States. I think we dodged a bullet, but by not, I am the place where the country's first African-American female millionaire made her riches. Annie Malone should be a hero of every single person in St. Louis. But still isn't well known enough. I'm the place where women could have gotten the vote 50 years earlier. Virginia Minor walked up the steps of the old courthouse on October 15th, 1872 and said, "I'm here to register to vote." And they said, "You can't register to vote, you're a woman." She said, "Sure I can. 14th Amendment says anyone born in the United States has all the rights of citizenship. Surely voting is a right of citizenship." That case goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and it turns out the Supreme Court doesn't always get it right. They unanimously agreed that voting was not a right of citizenship. But look, Virginia Minor didn't think she was going to get to vote. She knew that she had to fight that unwinnable battle for women to eventually get the right to vote. It would take them 50 more years, but it wouldn't happen without St. Louis and Virginia Minor. Can I read one quote?
One quote.
Okay.
Go ahead.
In 1863, Frederick Law Olmsted, the guy who designed Central Park in New York, came to St. Louis, and this is what he had to say about St. Louisans. 1863, "What they never thought of concealing or suppressing or restraining from its utmost outpouring was their satisfaction in being St. Louisans. No subject was talked of that did not give occasion for some new method for trumpeting St. Louis. It was the same with every man and woman we met in St. Louis. The devout dwellers in Mecca do not worship the holy city more than every child of St. Louis, his city." And the most notable thing I learned of St. Louis was the pleasure of the people to talk about it, what it had been, what it would be. That's what we need in 2024 as well.
Again, that's what we need right now. So one challenge, and we have one last question. One challenge for all of us is to stop questioning people who come here, who move here. Stop questioning people. Stop acting like they made the worst mistake of their lives by moving to St. Louis. Who told me the ice storm story? Somebody told me an ice storm story. They went to Houston. They moved to Houston, moved their daughter to Houston during the ice storm. They are in a Walmart, people coming in flip-flops. They don't even have coats and whatnot in Houston during that major ice storm that happened. People in the Walmart were saying, "Welcome," in the midst of an ice storm. They were saying, "Welcome, you're gonna love it here." In the midst of an ice storm in Houston. Would we do that, St. Louis? We should do that. We should do that. Do you all think that we focus so much on what is wrong that it overshadows all that is right?
Absolutely. I think we have focused at the International Institute to change that narrative. Truly, in St. Louis, there's so much happening here. When I took my job at the International Institute, I think one of my biggest pleasant surprise was just how much support I found in this community for immigrants. We don't say this enough, but there is significant support. We really embrace people from all over the world. It doesn't seem apparent. We don't talk about it, but I see every day how much help people in this community provide our new arrivals. And that's not something that really defines us as a community. So there's so much work that we have to do. Forget about the crime and all of that. There would always be something that is wrong. Let's overemphasize the things that are right. And there's so much that is right in this community that we have to be proud of and we need to talk about that will change the narrative.
Vanessa?
I agree. We are so welcoming to visitors, and in the same way that we host people here, if we treat each other like that on a daily basis, things will change. One thing that I'm really proud of that RAC is working on now in partnership with the City of St. Louis is our St. Louis Mural Project. The applications just closed today. We have 60 sites and over 50 artists to paint 28 murals this year, 2 in every ward. And what makes that special is this is the first time there have been 14 wards in the city of St. Louis. And so one mural can talk about the history of the ward, but also talk about the vision for the ward so that we can define the narrative and the story that we want to tell in this uniquely historic moment. And so that's what makes the arts here so powerful, is the vision that we can cast.
Jody, you get to wrap it up in 30 seconds.
And then I don't think it's either or. So it's not, should we talk about the challenges, should we talk about the positive stuff? It's, we got to talk about the positive stuff to face those challenges. I'm inspired by Nine. I'm inspired by the International Institute. I'm inspired by RAC. I'm inspired by Annie Malone. I'm inspired by Virginia Minor. I'm inspired by 314 Day. And that's what makes me want to build a better St. Louis for the future. So it's not either or, it's let's be inspired so we can face those challenges.
All right, you did that. So now I have time quickly to ask you, it's 314 Day. What is your favorite place, people, place, thing, food in St. Louis? Jody, go.
Tower Grove Park.
Tower Grove Park. Vanessa, go.
City Foundry.
Ooh.
Festival of Nations.
Ooh, love it, love it. Dr. Jody, Vanessa Cooksey, Arrey Obenson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome job, awesome job.